Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most heated topics on the table for 2025, immigration. Let's get into what this debate is really all about.
It really feels like you can't escape the conversation around immigration and border policy, right? It's pretty much a constant in our national discourse. And honestly, for good reason. People are just deeply, deeply divided on it. So let's peel back all those layers, get past the headlines, and look at what's actually driving this whole thing. To get a handle on this, you gotta start with the public. And the polls show something kind of fascinating, almost a contradiction. You've got a 61% majority saying they disapprove of deportations, but at the very same time, 51% of people say they support expanding the border wall. How can both of those things be true? That paradox is right at the heart of this entire debate. So what exactly lit the fuse on all this? Let's take a look at the recent policy changes that have just thrown this whole issue into overdrive. So why is everything so intense right now? Well, the debate's been supercharged by a whole series of really aggressive policy shifts and pretty sweeping executive actions that have changed the game almost overnight. The pace of all this has been just breathtaking. Back in January, that controversial Invasion Act was signed, and almost immediately, Colombia responded by blocking U.S. deportation flights. By February, attempts to put new restrictions on birthright citizenship were stopped by the courts. And, this isn't just a U.S. thing. In May, the UK proposed its own new limits. It's just been a nonstop few months of action and reaction. And these policy shifts, they've had immediate, real-world effects. By this summer, we saw a staggering 51% surge in migrant arrivals at the border. An increase like that puts an immense amount of pressure on resources, on infrastructure, and on the people right there on the front line. All of this pressure, it pushes the conversation past just policy and into philosophy. It makes us ask a really fundamental question. What are borders for? And really, who are they for? One of the loudest arguments out there is rooted in this simple but actually profound idea. Should borders just be fully open? Let's look at both sides of that coin. The two sides here, they see a completely different future. On one hand, proponents, they imagine a world with a stronger global economy, less inequality, and all this amazing cultural exchange. But on the other hand, opponents see that same world and warn about serious security risks, strained public services, and the potential for a lot of social friction. Okay, so beyond the philosophy, this debate always inevitably comes down to the money, the economic impact. The core economic question really is this. When undocumented immigrants are part of the economy, does that ultimately help a country's finances, or does it harm them? Supporters will point to data showing they fill critical labor gaps, that they pay taxes, and they start new businesses. But critics, they point to a different set of numbers. They argue that immigration can push down wages for low-skilled workers and put a bigger burden on social services, like schools and healthcare. So, with all these competing arguments swirling around, what does the complete picture actually look like? When you pull all the data together, you really see the full scope of the challenge. You've got that 51% surge in migrant arrivals, and at the same time, you have that totally contradictory public opinion, 61% against deportations, while 51% want a wall. It's a really complex puzzle of numbers and feelings, and there are no easy answers. We so often frame this as a simple trade-off, right? Economics versus security. But the data shows it's just so much more complicated than that. So the final question isn't just about policy. It's about what kind of society we actually want to build. What is the true cost and what is the true benefit of a closed border versus an open one? That, right there, is the core of the 2025 debate.